Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you guys stopping by to check out this one. I'm pretty excited to bring you guys this video. I had the unique opportunity to sit down with Rob Pincus, who is the creator of the Avidity Arms PD10, and discuss a lot of things involving the PD10, as well as what's in store for Avidity Arms in the future, and even some of the projects they're currently working on. Rob provides a lot of great information, but also a lot of great insight into the design of the PD10 and how they're constantly working to improve their processes and their products. We talk about a lot of things related to the Avidity Arms PD10, but also some future projects you might see from Avidity Arms in 2024 and beyond, including an AR lower, possibly defensive shotguns, and they might be dabbling in self-defense ammo too. If you want to see the short version of this interview that touches only on the PD10, I'll have a link in the description. I appreciate you guys taking the time to check out this interview, and I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments.
So, I guess to get started here, so we had the original PD10, which I did have the opportunity to shoot a lot, and I did my review on, and I really liked it. I liked shooting it. I thought it was great. I thought the feel of the trigger was fantastic. In my video, I compared it to the Taurus G3C, I think is about what I compared it to. And I think you said that was a fairly accurate representation about what that trigger felt like. But then we moved on to the upgraded parts, the newer parts. So I did notice on the range a significant difference in the feel of the trigger. We had a conversation before where you touched on there was a little bit of a hang up, or a little something you could feel. And I definitely noticed a difference in this other trigger. I thought that first trigger was smooth already, but this, you definitely feel it's smooth all the way through, a lot more smooth. Can you kind of touch base on what went into those trigger enhancements?
Yeah, so the again, and we don't want to call it like an enhanced trigger. What happens is, if I look at this gun company a lot like I looked at my training company, right? If you go back and look at my training company 20 something years ago, we formally started teaching a program at the Valhalla Training Center called the Combat Focused Shooting Program. I don't know that there's ever been two classes that I've taught that were exactly the same, right? So 20 plus years, some dozen scores of classes a year, all over the world, different levels of student, different types of guns, different, focus in my mind on something I've been talking about recently, or a problem the last class had, or a problem I'm seeing this class have. So the class is always evolving and changing, right? If you talk to people that went through the instructor development, or any of the guys in our leadership team, they've seen that evolution. They've been part of that evolution and contributed to it. So the gun is really the same thing, right? One of the most frustrating things I ever had happen in the training side is large state police organization sent some guys to instructor development, and a couple of them were doing really well, and a couple of them were not doing really well, including the ranking guy, the supervisor guy. And he caught me outside the day that was the test day, going in with his guys. He's like, hey, we need to talk about something. Honestly, this really wasn't what we thought it was going to be. We thought we were going to be doing a lot more shooting and a lot less classroom time, and this just really wasn't what we signed up for. I just wanted to let you know that going into the test, we weren't really ready for a written test or a test of our teaching. We thought we were going to be doing a shooting test. Okay, well, you may have thought that months ago, but 4 days ago when we started this process, you knew exactly what you're getting into. So we're clear on what today is, right? Well, yeah, but that's sort of the problem, right? We didn't come here originally 4 days ago. So I wish you would have said something like on day one, because I have staff here. This is back during the Valhalla days. We could have put you through a shooting class and not this class, but now you're in this class. So I don't know what do you want to do? Well, we just we don't really feel like we prepared for this test. All right, well, you had 4 days, so push come to shove. Hey, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a 3-day certificate that says instructor development, and then you can do a 1-day shooting class. I'll get one of the other staff guys to run you through the 360-degree rooms and all that, and we'll call it good. Okay, but we're still like, we'll still successfully complete the instructor class. Well, no, I mean, you completed 3 days of training, but you're not getting certified. And his bottom line was, well, look, we're a big organization, we're a big agency, and we have an established program, and we like to go out and see what other people are teaching, but we're not going to take this back and like change what we're doing. It's like, well, I don't get it. What's the purpose of going out? Well, we want to stay up to date and all this. And it's like, well, but you're not going to change. Well, how can we change it? We've got hundreds of guys out there that we've trained in a certain way. If we change what we're teaching, then that's going to undermine the legitimacy. What you teach is radically different. It's good, don't get me wrong. And a couple of other guys started chiming in at this point. Oh yeah, we love this stuff. This is great. Well, if you think it's great, why wouldn't you change? Well, because that undermines what the guy learned last month. And I'm like, well, what about the guy next month? Obviously, like, we didn't agree philosophically, right? So I'm the same way with the gun. if this cam block, this is a really early cam block, like a pre-production cam block, was good enough to get us guns that we're shooting, like that's good, right? But that doesn't mean that if I can make a better cam block, this is one of the early production cam blocks that's got a nitride. I think this one has a very worn off nitride coating. Why wouldn't I put this in the gun like the minute this is ready, right? If this is structurally sound and works better and it's smoother, and it's more sensitive, it's less sensitive, let's say, to other elements of friction, a gun getting dirty, a poor shooting platform, bad grip or whatever, bent elbows, bad ammo, lighter ammo, something like that. Then why wouldn't I want to put this in the gun? And I don't need to make it like Gen 2 and make a big announcement. And there's no reason to recall these. Like, these were good, but this is better, right? And then this is even better. Well, this is a flawed better. This actually came out of the bin of parts that we were on our way to the current generation, and the machining here wasn't really clean, so we pulled this one out, but it was in the right direction. And then, like, if I go to, I don't know, I've got a bunch of guns sitting out here. If I go to this gun, like, this is the latest, greatest, bestest version of our cam block, which is really the rails on the gun, the center rails. We do have rail supports back here as well, but this is really where the real support is happening between the slide and the frame. If I come up with a better one, or the engineer, somebody finds a better way to do this next week, we're going to do that too. So the trigger has been like that as well. Now, that's to separate from an enhanced trigger or a target trigger or precision trigger or whatever we're going to call that we'll probably bring to market next year. It's just an evolution primarily around this trigger bar and the way that the trigger bar interacts with the plunger safety, the drop safety, and playing around with the radius there, obviously without compromising the safety. This bird's head, we call it, that comes up and interacts with that. That's really what you're feeling is a difference in the way this is cut, and no difference in this. We are going to be changing this design in our target, for sure, in our target trigger that we're going to come out with next year in 2024. But we might even have some like reverse evolution where the target trigger will enhance the plunger safety design for the standard gun. So without lightening the standard gun, we might even make it like another level smoother than what you're feeling. But that hiccup was in the interaction of this part and the current plunger. So again, I think people are going to watch this. They're going to say, well, wait a minute, what serial number range? And we could probably go back and tell you, but you could also just pop the top off your gun. And, if you're registered for warranty and you're having problems with your gun, send it in. We'll put the newest, latest, greatest parts in there. But that's not to say that because you don't have the latest, greatest part, your gun may not shoot perfectly for you, right? And obviously guns, as they wear in, what we were finding actually on this particular deal is that as people shot the gun more and more, and as we shot the gun longer and longer, we would see a change in this geometry that sort of leveled out. So it wasn't like an erosion that was constant, but it was a change in one of these angles, and then it settled. But once it was settled, it was smoother. It lost that little hiccup, that little hesitation at initial engagement. So it's like, hey, you know what? Why don't we just cut that in? And it won't compromise the integrity, the safety, the weight of the trigger, the way the trigger pull works, all that. And test that out. It works. Great. Here's the new trigger bar. And then from that point forward, boom. And that was probably like June of this year or July of this year. So the half the guns that are out there in the world have that different trigger bar configuration. In addition to, if someone has a problem, send it in. And we've had people, we had a front sight channel problem, right? So the front sight channel at our maximum width and at the sight from Ameriglow at the front sight's minimum, it would press in and feel good. But then if you shot it, it might loosen up and start floating. So I have to send it back. We'll either give you a new slide or we'll peen this and we'll get it fixed. Well, every time a gun comes back for something like that, which we've probably had 20 or 30 of those come back, cool, we'll look at the inside too. And if you need an upgrade part or an update, really a refurbish on some of the parts, boom, we'll put that in there as well. Some very early guns also had a trigger bar issue related to the way that the trigger interacts with the trigger pin, and that the trigger shoe could float a little bit to the left side of the gun. So we always had a spacer in all the production guns here. It's a polymer spacer. We ended up putting a metal press fit spacer on this side, which also traps the trigger bar, the trigger pin in place. So not only does it keep the pin from ever walking, because of its the potential interference with the polymer as you do anything with the gun wearing a little bit loose, What we now have is that's captured, so it can't have any wiggle or wear, and it stabilizes the orientation of the trigger. So if somebody's got what I would consider a bad trigger press, where they're pushing in on the trigger while they're pressing back, or they're pulling out on the trigger while they're pressing back, that doesn't let that wander. Because in the original design, if somebody had that bad trigger press, which, you know, hopefully we would think any of us testing the gun weren't doing that. Once we got it out into the field, and novices that maybe hadn't had instruction or coaching or an observation of their trigger press would have a binding, and that binding was coming from lateral pressure affecting the angle of the trigger bar inside the gun up against the slide. So putting that spacer in there is something that we never needed, right, as experienced shooters, I guess. But once we put it out in the market, it's like, oh, we never really thought that was going to be an issue. It's an issue. Boom, we'll fix it. 90% of the original owners for the first, 100, 200 guns that might be out there without that spacer, they were probably, smooth enough trigger pressers that this has never been an issue for them. So they've never called us, and they don't need that refurbishment. But if you're out there and you're watching this, it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this and get this information out there. If your buddy bought one of these in April or March, you just got one in October or November, and you're looking at it, and you're like, whoa, this looks different. It's not a Gen 1, Gen 2. It's not a mistake. 99.99%, right? It's not a mistake that you're missing a part. It's just that gun was an earlier generation. If there's a problem, if there's a hiccup, register for warranty, reach out to me, or obviously avidityarms.com, at Avidity Arms, Instagram, or any of the contacts you might find for us. We'll get you squared away.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and I'll put some links in the description for anybody watching this as well.
But now, your gun, Miranda, you had an early gun, and your early, the gray gun, that one worked great. And I'll give you a little bit more of a shout out than you gave yourself. You did a great job with that original content, right? And not knowing you, I've been around the industry. I'm super old. Like, I know a lot of guys. Not being familiar with you or your channel. Actually, it was one of the guys here in the office that said, "Hey, do you know that is that Shenanigans? Is he one of your friends? Like, that's good content." And I was like, actually, I don't know who the guy is at all. Like, I don't even know how he got a gun. Like, he must have just bought one. Like, go figure, right? Like, so that's why I reached out. I'm like, here's a guy who's done nothing but invest in creating good content and sharing information about the gun that I brought to market. While guys that I've been friends with for 10, 15 years, it's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll get you some content on that. And it's like, hey, did you get a chance to shoot the gun yet? Oh, I meant to, but and they got paying jobs. I get it. Like there's reasons why that doesn't always happen as fast as you want it to, even with best intentions of friends. But you jumped in and did a great job. And so I wanted to reach out, acknowledge that. And that's why you actually I think you had the first black framed PD10 in private hands, certainly outside of an inner circle sense. So, and now you've had it for probably 2 or 3 months. And I know you've gotten to shoot it a lot. So that was really one of the first things I want to talk about was, okay, there are differences, but the first gun functioned correctly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've had no problems with the first gun. In fact, in my review, and we talked about this a little bit, the first time I shot it was in the rain, and it performed great in the rain. And outside of that, I've had a lot of other opportunities to shoot it. And we talked about the trigger and how the original style when it first launched and where we're at now. And I did have a couple of hangups, but I mentioned I did run the gun dry. I didn't put any lubrication. I just took it out of the box and ran it. Once I put lubrication on it, didn't have those issues any longer.
Shocking.
But that was only a couple of times. Yeah, I wanted to beat it up, see how it would run. But
I do the same thing.
Great.
I would love to get there. I mean, I actually had a conversation with some of the guys in the engineering department here. I said, look, I was sort of like, I get it. We could shoot 200 rounds of steel case ammo through every gun before we ship it. And the gun's going to shoot better and run better than if we only shoot, industry standard, like 2, right? Or at that time we were shooting 13, 1 full mag at 10 and 3. And I was trying to get us down to just 3, like insert a mag with the slide open, pull back, release, fire 1 round, the gun cycles and ejects, fire another round, the gun cycles and ejects, fire another round, the gun partially cycles and ejects, and then hit the magazine release. The magazine drops free. Cool. We know the gun functions, clean it up, box it up, get it out. And that's kind of where I want our standard to be. But and right now we are shooting 5 rounds per gun. So we probably could go to 3, but really I just kind of said through the end of the year, we're going to keep doing 5 rounds per gun. But at the time, the guys, I think that's asking a lot, right? And these guys are like engineers, like parts guys, right? They're not necessarily gun guys. And I said, look, man, we can go right now. I'll go get $1,500 cash out of the safe, or $1,600. That's going to take. We'll go down the street. We will buy an M&P, an XD, and a Glock 19, and we'll pull them right out of the box. And I'll bet we'll be able to shoot 300 rounds through them without any hiccups. right? Because that's been my experience as an instructor and as an educator and as somebody who's watched thousands of people come through gun classes. Is like, if you just want a reliable 9mm, go buy one of those 3 guns, go take it to the range, make sure it's going to work. But of course, better if you lubricate it, right? But yeah, I don't think you would have to. Now we might run into a hiccup and I'd be surprised. With this gun, absolutely. We put it in the manual. We even send you the, Aegis oil. We have a relationship with them. It's not just a little kind of pouch that gets all over everything. It's like a legit like sample bottle of the oil. Like, here it is, use it. We lubricate it. We actually put a thicker lubricant right up inside a little with a little hypodermic kind of needle. I guess it's not really hypodermic, but a little needle syringe. We just kind of stick in there. We put a little thicker lubricant right where the trigger bar connects with it's the disconnector. And where those come together, we know we need that to be lubricated for those first few shots to make sure those parts made in together. So after we do our lubrication and test fire, we clean it up, we stick that in there, and that's not going anywhere. But the oil that we put on the rails, depending on how long the gun sits there and with that nitride finish, that could get absorbed, slide off. All kinds of things can happen, right? So it is important that not just because it's in the manual and because it's kind of like gun owner common sense, we do expect the owner that wants to take that gun out there and have a really pleasant first shooting experience to lubricate it. But I know in my heart, you shouldn't have to. It should run, right? If you have 115, 124 grain NATO spec, like normal pressure or higher pressure ammo, and you stick it in this gun, it should run. And I really don't think that was the case, let's say 25% of the time with the first third of the guns that shipped this year. I'm much more confident that that is the standard we're at with the current guns that are going out the door. I think that's important, right? And people, big companies get a bad rap sometimes, like, oh, they're doing test and evaluation with their customers. And certainly we don't want to be put in that realm. But what we do want people to understand is at the end of the day, if you go buy a brand new Ferrari, they're going to tell you there's a break-in period. You buy a BMW M car, there's a break-in period. Is there officially a break-in period with this? No, but I will tell you that something I've said about any gun for a couple decades, if you bought it and you don't take it to the range and shoot a couple hundred rounds through it and make sure it's working and then shoot, at least a box of your carry ammo through it before you carry it, that's just reckless. I don't care what brand is on it. So I think if people do that kind of test, if they lubricate it, they take care of it, obviously I wouldn't be shipping these guns out as defensive guns if I didn't think that people are going to either identify a problem, an error that we made or a bad part really fast, or find out they can trust the gun.
Yeah. And I know that was a focus of yours, is making sure the gun was a concealed carry friendly gun.
Absolutely.
And the trigger is not, I guess, what is mainstream for triggers, striker fired triggers these days. And I'm sure some people might think, well, is that really, can you shoot it fast? And I don't know if you saw my video or not, that I uploaded. And I might have the first sub-second draw to first shot with a PD10. I think it was 0.89 seconds and then a sub 2 second bill drill. So it's definitely capable.
Definitely the only one on video. That's it's the only one out there in public. You can't argue with that. Like that was really impressive. And I shared that around on my social media. It's it's funny. You did that, and I think like in the same week, Trampus Swanson over at Swanson Media Group and Armed Lifestyle Magazine like shot a card in half or something, right? And then somebody else decided they were going to shoot the card in half. I haven't seen anybody like try to take you on with that sub-second. And it's like all of a sudden, like all these challenges are being like thrown out there. And that's fun, right? Like as a manufacturer, there's marketing value there, but just it's cool to see people enjoying the gun and doing cool things with the gun, and not just when I designed this sort of specifications on the gun and I shared with the team like, well, here's what we need the gun to be able to do. I'm really focused on user experience, and my user experience I'm most worried about is the defensive gun use. Second to that is going to be the training experience, and the training experience that is congruent to being prepared for the defensive gun use. So I don't really care about sub-second stage draws or cutting cards in half or hitting golf balls at 100 yards. Like that's not really the focus of the gun. But if people are pulling that off with the gun, awesome. And I will say that my original it has to be at least this accurate, right? And that was like, I don't know, 4 inches. I said 4 inches at 25 yards, because if you can hit a chest reliably at 25 yards with a 4-inch gun, it's concealable. I feel like we've met the standard. This gun is way more accurate than that. It's actually the engineering on it, the consistency, the capability for higher level precision is really beyond what I needed it to be, and that's what lends us lends this design really well to like the target model, the long slide, and the target model that we'll be doing next year. That's exciting, you know. So the long slide will work on the standard frame. Obviously, this is just a 3D printed one. I've got like the mock-up. We want the teaser of the double stack. So there you go. All right, so we got the PD10 coming soon. That'll ship standard with the long slide, and the long slide will be an option for the standard slide. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to have the long slide, a frame with a target trigger. You have the frame with the standard trigger. You can get the double stack frame that you can put the long slide on. You have the 4-inch slide. So there'll be a lot of modularity, I guess, not in the sense of take out the trigger and put it in some other grip, but at least interchangeability with these guns, which I think is important for people that are going to be fans of the brand and they like the way the grip feels and they understand the way we're doing the trigger, not with a really heavy wall, but more of a smoother press all the way through, kind of an older school kind of trigger. If people get it and like it, we want them to be able to, you know, do target shooting with it, maybe do competition shooting with it, as well as having the shorter barrel that maybe that's easier for them to carry. But I'll tell you what, I promise you, like in the prototypes that we've shot, the 5-inch slide, it's fast. You know, just having that much extra weight out in front of the hand, it shoots fast.
And the gun shoots real flat as it is already. I mean, you did a great job of making that bore height just real low, and so it just tucks right up in there, and it shoots flat. There's hardly any real recoil to any flip, at least.
So a lot of people have talked about like the thinner gun is going to concentrate the energy of the recoil. And so a thinner gun gives a shooter more felt recoil for any given like other set of parameters, right? A gun of a certain weight, certain caliber, certain ammo with, you know, 3 left in the magazine, that round is going to feel more pronounced in the hand when you fire it if this surface area is slimmer. Like that makes sense. It's concentrating the same amount of force over a smaller area. However, what people don't really factor in readily is that difference in where the energy is coming over the hand in terms of how that affects your alignment. So yes, you're going to feel a little bit more, but it's more of a push. It's not really that twist that you get when there's more mass moving higher above the hand. And really, I think the key to how we're able to do that is, if you think back, like even, if you go back 30, 40 years ago, the polymers, the injection molding and the way the polymers were made, it just wasn't as consistent or as durable as it is today from an engineering standpoint. So you have a lot of sub structures that get put into the frame. So you think of like on a Glock type design, you've got that little substructure that goes in there and holds the ejector. And then that also mates up with the trigger bar and kind of controls the trigger bar. They have a little shelf in there. They consider like a safety shelf, but it's like triple redundant. It really stabilizes the position of the trigger bar relative to what some of the other stuff that's going on in there. Well, that substructure of plastic adds width, right? And probably adds height unless you make it wider, really low. So we don't have any of those substructures. We're actually using the frame of the gun like you would with an older design, like a metal frame gun design. We're using the frame of the gun as the chassis, you know, as I think you should do when you want the gun, especially to be thin, but that also lets us get a little bit lower. So that's how people are like, well, how can you really be that much thinner than the Glock 48? Like Glock, why wouldn't Glock be as thin as they are? Well, when you factor in like maybe a readiness for 40 caliber, which I wasn't interested in, metal magazines versus plastic magazines makes a big difference, as Shield has shown us, right, with their 15 round aftermarket mags that go in exactly the same magazine tube as the Glock 10 round magazines. Well, the difference there is polymer versus metal, right? So we're already a metal magazine, which gets us thinner on the inside. And then what we're doing up here can be as thin as possible. And that does lead to much to the stamping tool and die maker side of the house, much to their dismay, a really complex trigger bar for a one piece. I think this might be like one of the most complex one-piece trigger bars on the market. Not having any separation of a bearing surface that's connected to the trigger shoe and then another bearing surface that actually makes the gun shoot that somehow interact to go all the way from trigger shoe to the action in the back. It's not unique, But if you look at the way this is built, like guys who understand like tool and die making, like the bends and the edges on this, and they've evolved over time. This is a very old one. They've evolved over time to get to where we are today in the gun. That's these guys are like wizards, what they can do inside of those dies.
And you certainly packed a lot into a small frame as far as the function and the quality goes. Now, I know you kind of mentioned the challenges everybody's coming up with, and I think you split 2 cards, right? And
yeah, I was like, all right, I'll get blackjack with my black PD10.
And I think that really speaks to the accuracy of the pistol. I know you mentioned your accuracy standards, but man, it shoots.
It does, and it holds a tight grip. Now, obviously, like I've been practicing I even forget which video I posted. I think I put 2 together because the very first time I went to do it, I'm like talking to the camera. I'm walking back. I'm thinking, all right, I don't know if I put like 5 rounds in the gun. And it's like, I have no like fear of I didn't get it on the first shot, right? I'm not going to like pretend to do it on the first shot like 17 times because anybody who knows me knows it's just like, that's not my gig. Like, golf balls at 100 yards, like a joke to me. It's not something I really do. And our sights, we got to remember, like these sights are the sights I designed for Ameriglow a long time ago to be fast pickup, like high contrast from the front to the rear, a big bright square inside of a big wide rear notch. When you're shooting at a card, even at like 7 yards, you're obscuring the target. You're sort of just like ish, right? You're like kind of guessing. So there's some amount of luck, right? And that's why like the target version will have a different sight setup, right? It'll have a much more narrow front blade and a much more narrow channel in the back. So you have the potential to be more precise, to shoot at a smaller target that isn't obscured. Well, so I literally have taken a knee and I think I'm like still half talking as I fire the first shot. And the cards, pieces of cards go flying. I'm like, well, that's cool. Then I go pick it up and it was just like the corner of the card, right? So like I hit it like here and it like twisted the card at the top. I guess I didn't have them set strong enough and it just took the corners off. And I was like, well, that's not good enough. So then I went back and put two other cards together and made it more stable. And I think the video I posted, I showed it's like the second shot, maybe that cuts that one really cleanly in half. So I have not seen Trampus reply to that, nor have I seen you do it. So
I know
you got to go 3 of a kind. 3 of a kind, I think, is the next challenge.
Yeah, I got to get some cards and get out there and try it, see how I can do.
There you go.
Now, what's in store for the future of the pistol? I know we talked about the PD18, the long slide, but where are these improvements kind of going?
So the other thing we're going to do, a lot of people have seen this over the years, the PD8, which is a chopped grip version, an 8-round version that's just easier to conceal. So we got that in the works for a production gun. We've had the prototypes out there for a long time. That probably kind of sums up the way the PD10 is evolving, right, over the next, let's say, year. The longer slide, the double stack, same ergonomics, same contour, almost, it's not obviously not 100% parts interchangeability, but it'll be really close. Very few different parts, the magazine catch, the magazine, obviously, but there'll be a lot of, I think people will be surprised when they see it. When most gun companies traditionally have come to market with a new gun, they've started looking for like that duty gun, like the military or law enforcement contract is always kind of the holy grail of a new gun that's in the defensive realm. So the double stack full size gun is usually the one that comes out first. You think like Glock 17 versus Glock 19. And some companies have sort of flipped the script a little bit with some of the later designs. But when the guns start getting bigger, if they already have something that's a double stack gun in that line, I think of like the 320 versus the 365. There's really a big difference there. It's not like a Glock 26 versus a Glock 17, where you basically have the same gun shrunken down. The 365 is a different gun from the 320, even though it's in the same vein, right? Like when you think about the way they engineer it and the way it's built. So when the 365 grows, it really becomes its own thing and it starts to compete with the other gun. The Glock, right? When you get a Glock 48 and you start thinking about extended magazines, and if you were going to put a comp on the end of it, well, all of a sudden you're really close to having a Glock 19 again, right? So the way this gun works, because we built the slim gun first, we can evolve the gun to a wider grip and keep the top, pretty much the same. And probably the best example that we've used in-house is the P7, the squeeze cocker from HK. It was originally a single stack design, and when they grew it in the grip module to a double stack design, really not much changed at all in terms of the parts and part numbers and the assembly process and the way the gun worked. And that's what we're doing with this. So this is a very rough 3D printed prototype, but with a not with this 3D printed slide, but with a standard 4-inch slide. This gun has been shot a lot. I've got another one over there that's been shot. So we definitely have been shooting the prototypes, and it's really just a matter of selling enough single stack guns to justify the investment in the mold to do the injection molding on the double stack. So that's coming. We are looking at another caliber. That's about as much as I'll say now. And right after the holidays, people will find out what that's all about, and people might be able to guess. There's been some Easter eggs out there and some other content that are out there in the world already. So we are going to be coming out with another caliber option in 2024. And we're going to play around a little bit with an AR. We know we have a lot of fans of the brand, let's say. So, and people that have followed my teaching for a long time, and they see the way things that I've taught forever, like, show up in the design here, and taking some of the same ideas I've had about ARs and the best way to run ARs into an AR, not to, like Daniel Defense doesn't need to get scared. Like, we're not going to displace them in the AR market. Like Bravo company, don't get worried. What we're going to do is basically, for fans of the brand, we've teamed up with Nemo, which is really exciting because the Nemo family and I, we've worked together before, maybe even with some of them were at other companies. We've done some collaborations. I've done 2 other limited edition ARs with some of my design cues in mind. One with Mag Tactical, probably 10, 11 years ago. And then 4 or 5 years ago, I did one with Patriot Ordnance, POF. And we're taking some of those ideas, but then really some very unique new things that I'm kind of surprised are unique and new. When I started showing people that are really AR guys, they're like, oh yeah, nobody's ever done that. That's a good idea. So that made me feel good. And I was like, all right, well then let's do our own lower. And if, let's say you, I don't know what your serial number on your PD10 is, right? But let's say that you're such a fan of the brand. You're like, well, if Rob's doing an AR, I want to get one of those. If Avidity Arms doing an AR, I want to get one of those. We'll actually serial number match your AR to your PD10. Right. Wow. So that's fun for me. I think it's fun for the customer. So that's sort of where we start, is let's just do this to get that out there to show guys that we care about them as people that want to be associated with us, especially people who are students of mine who've been following the way we do things and the way I teach people to do things. Now, yeah, your handgun makes a lot of sense. We get it. We want the AR from you. But then most of what I'm interested in is in the lower. So the upper, we're just teaming up with Nemo, and we're going to put a complete Nemo upper on the lower that Avidity Arms makes. And probably our biggest trick thing that we're doing, there's some little styling cues, like the safety index point that we build into the frames of the PD10s. Like, they show up also to give you that tactile place in the same style for your trigger finger when you're not shooting on both sides of the gun. But most important is really the magazine well change. And the magazine well change is because I teach in our programs, all as much as possible non-visually referenced gun handling, right? So keep your eyes off the gun. So because we teach non-visually referenced gun handling, just keep your eyes off the gun unless you absolutely need to. Now, a lot of people are like, well, I need to do certain things that they really don't. And we stress that in the class. And one of those things is loading an AR. So we teach people traditionally to we call it the beer can grip, extend the fingertip up near the lips. You're not checking for rounds. Like, you should know if you pick a magazine up whether it has bullets or not, especially if it's coming out of where you keep the full magazines. But what you're using that finger for is to index the bottom of the mag well. And you index the bottom of the mag well, and now you can drive it up in, make sure it's seated, and go on about your business for the rest of the reload or whatever. What this allows us to do is that we've taken a big chunk out of this, but it's not just an angled cut to where we've opened the front up, which a lot of people I think have done before. We still leave this lip, and that lip is, if you think about it, when the magazine's coming from a pocket or from a carrier or your belt line or wherever it is, it's got forward momentum, right? So if I'm in a low ready position, which we teach, so I'm up in the shooting position, I bring the gun down. When the gun comes down, I've got forward momentum, and I hit that lip, and then I rock back and go up into the AR. So it's a forward momentum. It catches. When it catches, it rocks back almost like AK or HK style and funnels up. So we've funneled the back of the magazine well here at the bottom. So that channel that you have at the back of the AR, there's actually a funnel for it. So it's a forward motion rock up and in, and then it locks. The other thing that this cutout gives you, and I think like Clint Smith at Thunder Ranch is probably the most famous for this. He'll tell people to cut out a block in the middle of it, leave the full magazine well, but cut out an opening, because if you have shorter fingers or less finger strength, if you have to clear that double feed, right, it's just easier to go up and under. If you have that hole cut out, you don't have to go the whole length of the mag well. So this relief also gets you closer to the chamber when you have to get a finger in there to do any kind of malfunction clearing. So it serves a couple of different purposes there. What I was really surprised about is, and please, if you're watching this video and you know like some other company did this in 1974, like I'm super curious about that, because the guys I've talked to, like guys who are really, like I said, AR guys, like guys who have designed and built really cool things for ARs and work at some of the big AR companies. They're like, yeah, we don't think anybody's ever done that. And apparently it just comes down to, well, it's not in the original print. And so many people want mil spec. And when people who are really into the like fancier designs, it's almost more aesthetics over fancier, better function. And the people that just want pure function tend to gravitate towards the idea of mil spec being the holy grail. And you know, that's really not the case. So I'm excited about the way the market responds in this. I took this, the wholesaler show, NESGW, and like everybody who saw it, in magazine people, AR people, are like, wow, that's cool. So that's going to be on the market in 2024 as well. And again, not expecting to sell 100,000 ARs. If we do, awesome, you know, but we're primarily a close quarters defensive pistol company. I don't see that changing. But for people who are into that, and if other companies were like, oh, did you patent that? Like, honestly, I'm not a real patent lawyer kind of guy. Like, Marty, if Daniel Defense wants to come out with this, just give me a little shout out, maybe a free sample every once in a while. That'd be cool. You know, if Nemo wants to do it, like POF, anybody out there, like basically you have my permission. But yeah, it was Pincus's idea. Who knew? Would be a great thing to see in your social media when you copy that, because I do think it's going to help people load the gun faster and without having to look down, which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it looks good too. It's got a nice aesthetic to it.
Actually, it's I should have grabbed for the video. It's over in the engineering office. All this I call them like these little Tron lines. These little all these lines. My guys, like the CAD drawers, like my engineering team here, they did this to match the look of the new Nemo uppers. So Nemo has never sold components before. I think we're officially the first collaboration, and they're going to start selling components because they've got an amazing new manufacturing facility that they put together at their headquarters out west. And they now have reached the capacity so that they're not just selling full guns. They're going to be selling components, out to individuals and OEM style or collaborations. And I think we're their first collaboration for the AR. I asked at the right time. So we decided, starting with a blank slate as far as the billet cuts, to do our styling to match there. So they look great together. It's going to be a very cool looking gun.
That's awesome. The AR builders out there are really going to love that.
I think so. Yeah, they're going to be excited. Like, it was actually funny. I was at the wholesaler show, and one of the major online retailers, I was telling them about it, and they're like, "Well, how'd you do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, you know about their new manufacturing facility. I'm friends with those guys. They've sponsored the Personal Defense Network training tour for a couple of years. I go way back with some of them over there. But at the same time, I'm like, they have this new manufacturing facility. Yeah, we know. Well, they're going to be selling components. We've been asking them for years to just sell uppers. I'm like, well, you're welcome." news leaked. So I think you're going to start seeing component parts from them on some of those online stores and all the normal places, as well as direct from them, as I understand it, next year. So I'm not speaking for them, but that's the news as I understand it. And I'm just happy to be able to collaborate with them, because that again makes it really clear. It's not like the headline shouldn't be like Rob wants to be an AR guy now. Like, that's not the deal. Like, I'm an AR fan, and I teach people how to use them, and I do think this will be a cool one. But collaborating with a company like Nemo, we're definitely not trying to like take that market over, but it makes it easier for us. This is what I really want to do, and again, to be able to serial number match and do all those cool things for the customers that are loyal to the Avidity brand, but then partnering up with a high quality upper manufacturer, and getting the good barrels in there, and then letting people do what they want. We're gonna have Mission First Tactical, the minimalist stock, which everybody knows I've loved for years and years and years. That's going to be our stock, real simple, elegant, just does what it's supposed to do. So yeah, that'll probably hit just after SHOT Show, February.
Okay. Wow. Nice. Now, is this the direction you saw Avidity Arms going when you first got everything started, or you just you got what you needed to do to get the pistol out, and now you're just kind of seeing where else you can take it?
It's a little bit of a mix of both, right? So I always knew that we weren't just going to be like one gun, and I think it's also fair to say that this isn't the gun the market wants right now, right? So it's kind of like, this is the gun I wanted to build, and having accomplished that and gotten that to market, yeah, if we didn't do anything else, could I just kind of check the box on that and be proud of it and talk about it at dinner parties for the rest of my life? Yeah, like add it to the list of like cool things Rob's done, right? He designed a gun and brought it to market. I don't know where that fits, right? Like, but it's in there. It's in that list. It's on the list somewhere. And it's pretty high up there. And really no other person from the instructor side or the education side of the industry has ever done that. There are guys who have put their stamp of approval on guns, like Cooper with the Bren 10, I think is really a famous one. The idea to put the 357 cartridge in a mid-sized revolver came from Bill Jordan, Texas Ranger, an exhibition shooter, also an educator to some extent inside of the community. But that's not really designing a gun, right? There are all the limited editions, right? Like the Clint Smith limited edition with the cutouts. There have been, Clint Smith's probably done revolvers, a couple of them, a shotgun. I know he's done the AR with Bravo Company. And now there's one with, I think he has an AK out with Palmetto State. So there are Century, one of the two. And then, so we've all done, like in the instructor world, a lot of people have done these limited edition collabs, but it's not the same as actually designing a gun and starting a gun company. So am I happy with that? And could I stop and be satisfied? Yeah, but this really, to me, is a transition for me professionally into a gun company owner, gun designer, manufacturer, from the idea educator, manufacturer guy. We've had incredible accomplishments with our team, the collaboration with the United States Concealed Carry Association, Personal Defense Network, all those things we've done on the training side. Continue to do that, continue to push, but putting a lot of energy while the rest of the team sort of carries the big heavy burden on that side of teaching on the ranges into this. So I always said, I want to do a pistol, I want to do a rifle, I want to do a shotgun. And I have a very much original idea for the rifle. I did not think we were ever going to do ARs. And in fact, I've resisted AR. So my collaboration here with AlphaTech, they've made AR uppers and lowers for a lot of years, and they do a really good job with it. So for them, it was sort of low hanging fruit. Like, well, if you're starting a gun company and we're going to partner up, like we already do ARs. So why don't we do an Avidity AR? So much so that they actually wanted, like, I think they saw it as a really big opportunity to release the AR first before the PD10. And it's like, no. Like, I can't be telling people I'm designing a gun and bringing it to market in my own gun company for like 7-8 years and then launch with another AR. Like, I was so not excited about that. So getting this out the door then means we can take advantage of like the manufacturing experience they already have and go after what might be some low hanging fruit. Like, if we sell a few hundred ARs next year, great. It's a cool design. I do believe in it. I think it's something different. The collaboration with Nemo is awesome. Helping out our customers or showing our customers we value them and want to do cool stuff for them. All that's awesome. But at the end of the day, it's also another revenue stream. We talked about a bullet design that we've tested in gel, and it's a really interesting bullet design. We talked about maybe we're going to do some ammo, right? But we're definitely going to evolve the PD10, definitely going to do this rifle project within the next year or two. I'd love to see a really good semi-automatic 20 gauge defensive shotgun. You really don't see that as an option for many of the major manufacturers. There's a couple pumps that have been done over the years. I have a really beautiful Van Comp custom 870 and 20 gauge. I think 20 gauge is incredibly overlooked as a defensive option for home defense, especially like when you think about the full family. A 20 gauge slug or 20 gauge buckshot is pretty serious business, across the bedroom or across the hallway, with much less, if the gun is designed as a 20 gauge, much less weight than the 12 gauge, and obviously less recoil when you're practicing, as well as when you're actually doing the thing. So I think that's something I'd like to tinker with. There's plenty of different designs that are already out there that could be modified into a defensive application or maybe tweaked and improved. So that's a thing I'm interested in. And then we're already talking about evolving this trigger mechanism so substantially that it's really not this trigger mechanism. And that lets us go back and revisit everything, like from the ground up, as far as the frame and everything else. And that's where I think, you had asked kind of, is the black frame gun you have Gen 2? It's definitely not Gen 2. It's like you think about like your operating system. Like you said, you just recently switched to a Mac, right? So you have Mac OS, whatever, 14.12.1.8, right? Or whatever. And it's like, okay, So it's going to be .8 or .9 or .10, but it's still Mac OS 14, right? So this is still the PD10, even if it has a different cam block. When we go to switching the entire trigger, the whole way it works and the way it feels, to make it even more sort of what my vision was originally for this and easier to manufacture, then that would be the PD10 V2. So that might happen, in a year or two as well, which would stick with the same frame, stick with the same double stack frame, same slides, all that, but it would be different internals. And the goal would be to make that a user upgrade, or at least an armor upgrade, so we could say, okay, if you want the new trigger version, old trigger version is great. If you want the new trigger version, $30, $50, whatever it's going to be, and boom. And then all the V2 guns would have that new internal setup. But right now it's been all we could do really to get a good consistent gun ramping up to the numbers we want. So I'd like to sell 5,000 of these in 2024, which would be a significant jump from what we've done here in 2023. But I'm really happy with what we've done in 2023 as well. And the experience you've had with the guns is like exactly what I want for people to do. Like, give it a chance, love it, decide you'd love to have another one, and really spend time getting to see what you can do with it and what it's capable of. And I think you've exemplified that experience and shared it with other people, which is awesome. So thanks.
I appreciate all the opportunities. And, I've been following the project almost since inception. So to finally have one in my hands, I was super excited. And so when it did come out, I had to run to the shop and get one. There was no going around that. Now, cool. I did see a post from Avidity Arms asking if people like packages, holster packages, sight packages, things like that. So can you touch on that? Do we have anything exciting coming maybe next year for that?
So where that really lives in what's called the two-step distribution process, right? So there's let's say there's 10 wholesalers, distributors out there that are like nationwide, legitimate options, like good companies to work with. They all kind of want to have something special, right? So if your gun shop is a big gun shop, you have accounts with 4, 5, 6 different distributors, right? So if you can't get the PD10 gray frame from this guy, you're going to call the other guys until you can get one. So the way that the distributors kind of work together collaboratively in the industry is, well, your distributor, you own one and I own one. You're going to be the exclusive source for the gray frame PD10s, and I'm going to be the exclusive source for the black frame PD10s. Well, the gun shop that wants to have both for their customers has to deal with both of us, right? So now, certainly, some distributors are like, "Nah, we don't care about exclusives. We want to sell everything you got, and we want to be exclusive only to you." But I don't see that much of that, right? Like Ruger's not going to only sell through one company, right? Smith & Wesson is not going to only sell through one company. So as we explore like how Avidity Arms products are going to get to the consumer, whether we go, we were beyond direct to retailer. We know we don't want to do that like 1, 2 guns at a time. Do we want to be dealer direct, or do we want to do two-step? Well, two-step is how we've launched. And I really do believe in that system for the most part. And one of the nice things about that is that means one of these groups or one of these distributors or these rep groups might come to me and say, "Hey, Rob, we want to have an exclusive package that's like an upgraded case, the gun, maybe the G-code holster, and we want a lucid optic," right? So, okay, so we're going to have a lucid optic on there, and we're going to have the G-code holster, and we're going to have the black framed gun. It's going to come in a nicer case, and it's going to have 3 magazines instead of 2. And that whole package goes out the door for, obviously a much higher MSRP than just the gun alone would. And that also gives the retailer, a lot of retailers love that, right? The retailer, when somebody said, I'm looking for a defensive gun, but I don't really know where to start. Oh, let me show you our packages, sir. And here's this. It comes with the holster. It comes with the extra magazine. It comes with the optic. Like, this is where, if you're just getting started, this is where you need to be. And especially with a gun that's proprietary, right? Like, if you're buying your 4th Glock, you probably already have holsters, right? Like, there's one of your holsters will also fit the one you're getting now. Well, that's not the case with this. So with the PD10, it's like, well, does that retailer stock a holster that also fits it? That's a decision factor when he's talking to a wholesaler about whether he wants to bring this into inventory. So if the wholesaler or the rep group can say, here's a package, we're only gonna for instead of the $600, we're gonna for $900. You get the gun, the holster, the extra magazine, and the fancy case. And for $1,100, you get the gun, the holster, the fancy case, the extra magazine, and a white light laser combo from Veridian is also attached to the gun. So we've talked to a lot of different companies about that supply the accessories, and we've talked to a lot of the people that are the first step in distribution process for us, and everybody is kind of excited about it. Now it's just a matter of kind of shuffling through the options and figuring out what those packages will be. And then, it could be 2 or 3 months of process by the time, you're sort of, are we bringing the optics in and mounting them, or are we shipping the guns to the wholesaler and the wholesaler's mounting them? It's some of that, because it might be, hey, we've got 100 of these sites and we don't have it. We're not selling them really fast. Can you send us 100 guns that are optic ready? And we were going to put 100 of these red dot sites on your guns and sell them as a package. Cool. Right. Like, to find 100 people in the world that want that, and we're in business. Right. And that's usually a pretty low bar. Right. At our manufacturing level, we're going to make as many guns next year as some of these gun companies make in, 2 weeks. So it's relatively easy to find the 5,000. It sounds like a huge number to me right now, but everybody in the industry is like, yeah, man, if you're trying to find 5,000 people that want that gun, they're out there. Right. Especially as concealed carry and personal defense oriented as the market is right now.
Yeah, I'm definitely doing my part to spread the word. I'm trying to let people know about it. I'm taking people to the range, letting them shoot it and getting their hands on it and everything.
You didn't let Michael Myers shoot it, though.
Oh, true. I did not.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair,
I was waiting for you to come rolling out of the outhouse with the PD10. Like, haha. What was he shooting? Shadow Systems? Is that what he had?
That's XR 920.
That's a good gun. I've got the 920L. And I love, I've said this now for a couple of years. They are the best version of a Glock style firearm that's on the market right now today. And especially they won my heart over with that 920L, because it's the shorter grip with the longer slide, right? Which I think is the key. And that's why I think a lot of people are going to love the PD10 with the 5-inch slide. They're going to love that balance and that feel. And it's easier to conceal extra slide and barrel than it is to conceal extra grip. And 10+1 in that configuration, I think a lot of people are going to love that.
You were Frankensteining guns, wasn't it? The XD, you had the long slide on for quite a while.
I did a chop on an XD. I took the XD and chopped it down to the XD compact, or the subcompact actually, and then had the 4-inch slide. But originally I was doing the Glock 26L. So the 26L was this concept of taking a Glock 19 and cutting the grip down so it would hold a Glock 26 mag. And so people are always like, well, Rob, I mean, come on, is 10 rounds enough? Like 12 years ago, I was creating a 10+1 Glock out of a 15+1 Glock, right? And then I did run the XD 4-inch slide version on the XDS. So the XDS had a 4-inch and a 3.3, and the 3.3, like most 3.5 or 3-inch barreled guns, they're snappy guns. There just isn't a lot of weight out in front of your hand to help keep that front end down. And especially with that gun as tall as it is, relative to like what the PD10 is, where it sits a lot lower, like you were saying earlier. When you have a taller gun and it's shorter, like that, it's just going to be snappy and flippy. But the 4-inch XDS, which they discontinued for some reason, I know why, it just wasn't as popular. People think small gun, small slide, small barrel. I mean, look at like the Glock, what is it, the 43X, which is really a 48 with a 43 slide. Like, that boggles my mind. Like, I don't know what you get out of that. I don't know why you want a big grip and a little thing, but I was using a Glock 48 slide on a Glock 43, which they've never released, a 43L essentially, but that worked from day one. And people are like, wow, you only have, whatever it was, 7 or 8 rounds. I have 7 or 8 rounds, but those 7 or 8 rounds are going to be very accurate and very fast. And I'm okay with that. As a guy who at one point carried a J-frame revolver, like I'll take the 8 rounds out of a 4-inch compact Glock, but and people ask me a lot of, like, do I carry the gun? Obviously I carry the gun now. I guess that's obvious. I didn't carry the prototypes. I waited until the gun was insured. The company was insured and we had a production gun. This is PD100001, and this is my carry gun. Primarily, like when I have, Colorado and North Carolina, I bounce all over the place. So I've got others as well, but this is primarily my carry gun. And before that, I was carrying a Glock 48 with shield mags, so I was carrying 15+1 because it was the next best option. But I think this is a better option for a lot of people, including me. So this is what I'm carrying now.
Are there going to be extended magazines?
Yeah, we've actually looked at an aluminum magazine design, and the trick is we're using an existing magazine body. I don't know if I have a magazine body. We're using an existing design on the magazine tube at the bottom. These are obviously manufactured for us, Mark, with Avidity Arms. This is one of the very few pieces that isn't made in the building I'm sitting in, and it's really because of this laser welding that happens. So we do stamping and all the bending and cutting, all the stuff that would get us to that, but we don't have the capacity here to do the laser welding. It's something we're looking into adding. What we do is we get these tubes in, and then we change the top a lot. So the geometry up here is not a standard 1911 9mm geometry. So these changes are important for reliability and feeding in our gun, because it's not the geometry of a 1911, obviously, up at the top. So I always tell me, like, originally it was a great idea, like, hey, 9mm 1911 magazines, there's billions of them out there and they're cheap. You may find one that works pretty well with your gun. Cool. Use it for practice. For your carry mags, I highly recommend, and our mags are not super expensive, using our, actually factory modified, optimized magazine tubes. Well, now you look at the other end, the way this all goes together, you can't extend this very readily because of the way these bend in and the floor plate goes in. So you'd actually have to change the bottom design, and we have a couple different options in mind for how we would change this. But the extra step of changing this to extend the magazine when we don't have the long slide out yet, now I'm the thing I just made fun of, right? Long grip, short slide is what I'm putting out on the market. So, today, if you feel like you absolutely need more than 11 rounds in 9mm, you're going to have to go somewhere else. But we're going to get there in 2024. We're going to give people some options to have more rounds out of this gun, and what I think makes sense in terms of carry proportions.
I'm certainly looking forward to it. Did you have any last words? Anything you want to add that we haven't touched base on yet?
Man, we covered a lot of ground. I think we kind of like touched almost everything. The holster support is probably one of the big things. It was really important to me. I've lived through the agony of trying to help companies promote a carry gun that has no holster support. Here's our new defensive gun. We forgot to call the holster companies again. So working with G-Code, JM4, TAC Rig, Crossbreed holsters. There's a lot of good companies, a lot of smaller regional companies out there. Houdini Holsters is one that made holster for me here at a local gun show just a couple weeks ago here in North Carolina. And now I've seen them kind of touting the fact that they make holster for the gun, because we've got retailers that hit the gun show circuit around here with our guns, and people ask that question, what holster? And well, those guys right over there, they make a holster for this. And then also from G-Code now, the Paradigm, they're really like freakily high quality universal holster that fits so many guns, also fits the PD10. So that's cool as well for people that are looking for like, geez, I don't want to have to spend $100 on it. Well, good, you're spending $30 on this holster that comes with the paddle for outside and the clip for inside the waistband, and it's going to fit, literally 150 different guns pretty easily, I think, when you really break it down by model. And I have a video on my YouTube kind of showing, like, kind of almost comically how many guns fit into that holster. Let us go through my safe and put everything from guns people have never heard of to FK Bernays, all the way down to Glocks and XDs and stuff like that. So that's it's a fun holster for G-Code to have, and obviously ours fits it because damn thing fits almost everything. But which holster have you been using?
The G-Code. I can't remember the name off the. That's the one with the sidecar for the spare.
Yeah,
I have that one, and I have the other one that has the magazine pouch.
But the Synchron.
Yeah, the Synchron. Yep.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. Good. Yeah. It's so is that the one you did the sub 1 second?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, man. I appreciate your interest in the project. I appreciate, again, your kind of production quality and willingness to just go out there and do it. I think that there's a lot of guys who reach out to me as somebody who's been in the media side of the industry and the educational promotional side, and hey, I'm thinking about starting a YouTube channel. Okay, it's free. Go. I don't know what do you have my permission? I'm not sure what you're asking, right? To see a guy who's out there just doing it, making it happen. The least I could do is say, hey, let me send you the latest, greatest. You have one in another color, and let's talk about it. So I do appreciate the time, on your platform, and obviously we'll share this out, and I'm sure other people will share it out, repost it, whatever, to let people know what's going on with Avidity Arms. It's just over a year now since in fact, I think this week might be the year mark where we got the commitment from Davidson's, our initial distribution partner, that we could be in their SHOT Show booth and in their SHOT Show flyer, which for me was a huge milestone, right? So it was in October of 2023 that we committed that we can get the gun for sale and shippable by January by SHOT Show, and then it was about finding out who our launch partner was going to be and how we were going to represent that at SHOT. And forever grateful, to them, my friends there, and took a chance on it being worth doing, and supported us in that launch. So 1 year anniversary, certainly by the time this posts, it's probably about a 1 year anniversary since we started getting guns out to some of my media guys who are going to help us announce it after the holidays. So important milestone, and I appreciate you sharing it on your own, but again, really, sharing your platform with me to have this conversation as someone who's experienced the gun, not really about the gun, but about the company and where we're going.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate you allowing me this opportunity.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Keep it up. I look forward to seeing this and anything else you do, including, I don't know, are you doing a Christmas skit?
Christmas?
Are you going to do a Christmas skit? I mean, you did the Halloween skit. Or are we just
I
going to Easter?
I might have to. I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
I thought that was going to be your deal. I thought people were going to know you as like Shenanigans, the holiday vignette guy.
Just
like,
bringing them all.
Yeah, just go. Like you'll be like, we got to do what's coming up. Beard Day, National Trimmed Beard Day video. Like, cause you're going to be all the holidays, every national holiday. I think that should be your thing by 2030.
I'll have to find a Santa Claus suit to put on.
You're gonna need friends. You're gonna need a team. I can't wait to see you grow. Congratulations on your new endeavor.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you.
Right,
you have a good day, sir.
See ya.